I never thought my own driveway would turn into a war zone, but I guess that's what happens when you've got a 22-foot Boston Whaler parked out front, a new neighbor with too much time on her hands, and a homeowners association that'll believe anything if you say it with enough fake authority. I mean, picture this, a perfectly legal boat tucked in the same spot for 3 years without a peep from anyone, and suddenly I'm sitting in court fighting for my house because Karen Henderson across the street decided my fishing rig was single-handedly destroying property values. Yeah, that happened. Now, before you think I'm just some guy with a chip on his shoulder, let me give you a little background. 12 years as a maritime insurance investigator, which basically means I spent a good chunk of my life sniffing out fraud and reading legalese until my eyes crossed. I know boats, I know regulations, and I sure as hell know when someone's playing dirty to get what they want. So when Karen set her sights on me, she picked the wrong guy to try to bulldoze. If you've ever had someone try to weaponize rules against you, stick around because you're about to see how a bully crumbles when the truth comes out. My name's Marcus Thompson, and let me tell you, I'm not the sort to pick fights, but I won't let anybody roll over me either. After spending over a decade investigating insurance scams, you start to see patterns. People who fake evidence, twist the rules, and figure nobody's going to check their story. That's why I document everything: pictures, emails, dates, you name it. When I moved to Lakewood Estates 5 years ago, I just wanted peace and a place to fish on weekends. My house came with a 3-car driveway. HOA fees were fair, rules made sense, and honestly, the whole place had this small-town neighborly vibe. For 8 years, that boat's been my pride and joy, and for 3 years straight, it never caused a problem, not even a sideways glance from my neighbors. In fact, most of them would wave, ask how the fishing was, and a couple even said they liked seeing a real boat instead of another minivan. Then along came Karen. You know the type, late 50s, looks over her glasses at everything, walks like she owns the sidewalk, and somehow thinks moving into the neighborhood gives her a badge and a gavel. I'll never forget the morning she showed up 7 a.m. sharp, stomping up my driveway in a robe like she was about to serve a warrant. "That boat has got to go," she barked, pointing at it like it was leaking radiation. "It's ruining the look of my house." I tried to be civil, told her I'd checked the HOA rules backwards and forwards, showed her where it says, as long as it's not blocking the sidewalk or in disrepair, it's fine. She didn't care. "I don't care how long you've been breaking the rules," she sneered. "I paid good money to live in a respectable neighborhood, and I'm not letting some redneck with a junk boat drag us down." That's a direct quote, by the way. You could have knocked me over with a feather. But Karen wasn't done. She pulled out her phone, started snapping pictures: my boat, my cars, my yard, even the gnome in my flower bed. "I'm head of the Aesthetic Standards Committee now," she declared, all puffed up. "It's my job to make sure everyone follows the rules." Never mind the fact I'd never heard of that committee, and I'd read the HOA documents cover to cover. Still, she sent a storm of emails, one to every homeowner, complete with dramatic photos, warnings about commercial vehicles and visual blight, and some sob story about plummeting home values. Next thing I know, there's a petition going around Karen's holding coffee clutches in her living room, and she even started a Facebook group, Lakewood Estates Property Protection, if you can believe it, dedicated to getting rid of eyesores. She made my boat sound like an environmental disaster. The wild part: some folks actually bought it. People who'd never had a problem suddenly started eyeing me sideways at the mailbox, whispering about the boat situation. 10 days of this circus, and I get an official letter from the HOA signed by President William Chen listing 17 violations from unauthorized vehicle storage to visual blight. 17. They even quoted sections of the bylaws that didn't exist. When I called William, he said, "Marcus, this isn't personal, but Karen's evidence is, well, it's compelling. She's got property value analyses, safety concerns, and neighbor complaints." Only when I asked to see these complaints, he hesitated, didn't actually have copies. "It was all very thorough," he said, but the more questions I asked, the fuzzier his answers got. Let me back up a sec. If you ever find yourself in a situation where nobody can show you the evidence, You're probably looking at a setup. So I started investigating. That old insurance investigator itch kicked in. Turns out Karen's so-called property value analysis. It was just real estate listings from 3 towns over, different schools, different zip code, different everything. The safety hazards she mentioned, pure hypotheticals. The pictures had been edited to make my boat look like a beached whale. In those neighbor complaints, I went door to door. Most had never spoken to her about my boat, and some had no idea their names were being used. 2 even told me Karen had come by fishing for negative comments, but they'd shrugged her off. She just made the rest up. But here's where the twist comes in Karen's official role. I dug through the HOA's bylaws and meeting minutes. No aesthetic standards committee. No record of her being appointed to anything. She just declared herself in charge and people went along with it. Even juicier public records showed she was behind on her HOA dues, tangled in a fight with her mortgage company and 2 steps from foreclosure herself. Guess stirring up trouble was easier than fixing her own backyard. At that point, it was clear she was using the HOA as a shield, hoping to distract from her own mess. I started documenting every interaction, got statements from neighbors, and even hired a lawyer, Jennifer Walsh, a bulldog who'd handled HOA nonsense for 15 years. Jennifer took one look at the paperwork and said, "Marcus, this case isn't just flimsy, it's fraud." She cooked up a plan not just to defend me, but to counterattack, seeking sanctions for Karen and any board member who'd played along. Court day rolled around, a Tuesday in September, sticky hot. You could feel the tension in the hallway. Karen strutted in like she was the prosecutor, shooting me dirty looks and whispering to the HOA's lawyer, this kid who looked fresh out of law school. Judge Kellerman, a real straight shooter, took one look at the case and shut Karen down when she tried to speak, telling her she wasn't even a party to the suit. The look on Karen's face, like someone had yanked the rug out from under her, was priceless. Jennifer's opening was a work of art. She laid out every fact from the made-up evidence to the phony complaints and let the judge know exactly who'd been pulling the strings. Then she dropped the hammer, a thick folder full of side-by-side photos showing how Karen had doctored the images, plus screenshots of Karen's Facebook posts bragging about teaching that boat owner a lesson and getting rid of people who don't belong. When the judge saw that Karen lost, it stood up and started screaming, "That's not fair! You can't use that against me!" Tried to snatch the evidence from Jennifer's hands before the bailiff pulled her away. Judge Kellerman didn't even blink. She just told Karen to sit down and warned she'd be thrown out if she opened her mouth again. After that, it was all downhill for the HOA. Jennifer proved every piece of evidence was bogus, every complaint either forged or misrepresented, and even showed that some board members had tried to back out but were bullied by Karen. The HOA's lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. When all was said and done, Judge Kellerman dismissed the case with prejudice, slammed the HOA with $37,000 in legal fees, and referred Karen's actions to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. She even told Karen directly, "Your conduct has been reprehensible and potentially criminal. I recommend you get yourself a lawyer." You could hear a pin drop. After the dust settled, Karen's meltdown was the talk of the neighborhood. Word spread fast. 3 board members quit the HOA, called an emergency meeting to figure out how to cover the damages, and Karen, she ended up hiring a criminal defense attorney and lost her house to foreclosure when the legal bills caught up. Maybe the most satisfying part was seeing all those neighbors who'd followed Karen's lead start to realize they'd been played by someone who didn't even care about the community. My boat still sitting in the driveway looking as good as ever. But now it stands for more than just fishing weekends. It's a little reminder that the truth wins when you fight for it, even if the odds feel stacked. And Karen. Her story's now a case study in HOA fraud. She wound up convicted on multiple counts. Fraud, perjury, even got a short jail sentence, and had to pay back every dime she cost the community. Not gonna lie, it felt good seeing justice done. So if you ever find yourself up against someone like Karen, don't back down, document everything, get a good lawyer, and remember, bullies count on you being too scared or too tired to fight. But sometimes standing your ground is exactly what makes a difference, not just for you, but for everyone watching. Now tell me, have you ever had to take on a bully who tried to bend the rules for their own gain? Did you stand your ground, or did you have to swallow your pride to keep the peace? Drop your story in the comments because I guarantee someone else out there needs to hear how you handled it. And if you think justice was served here, or maybe you think I went too far, let's talk about it. That's what community's all about.